Hi, my name is Mia, and this is our baby puppy Leaf. And yeah, we just had our birthday. Yeah, Leaf and I have our birthday on the same day, and Leaf turned 1 year old, and I turned 24, and we had such a great day. But that is not what this video is about. I just wanted to give a little update for those of you who follow my channel for Leaf. And yeah, in this video I kind of want to talk about the books that I have read so far this year. I kind of go through like reading phases, and yeah, the winter time is always a big reading phase for me. And yeah, the other day I checked just how many books I read so far, and I was so surprised how many there were. And also I'm really positively surprised by how good actually all the books that I read so far have been. That usually never happens to me. There's usually like a couple of books that I don't really like as much, but so far all the books have been great. So I figured, why not share them with you? Maybe you can get some inspiration for reading some books this year yourself. And yeah, I'm just gonna go through them in kind of the order that I read them in. They're all from like very different genres, so there's something for everyone in here. And yeah, I'm gonna go through the physical books first, and at the end I'm gonna mention some audiobooks that I've read, because I love listening to audiobooks when I'm out on a walk with Leaf, or when I'm out on a run, or when I'm doing any sort of chores around the house. I usually always have an audiobook playing, so I'll get to those later. But let me start off with the physical books. And I'm gonna start with one that's maybe a bit cheating because I read this in December. It's called Lessons in Chemistry. It's quite a popular one. It's also now a show. I believe it's on Apple TV. Yeah. I started watching the show, did not enjoy it nearly as much as this book, but this book was great. It's about a woman in the 1960s who is a scientist, a chemist, and kind of the struggles that go along with being a female and being a scientist. Like, it talks about issues like being taken seriously, and just the workplace opportunities. And it's just a great read about feminism, and I really enjoyed it. It's written really well. The story was amazing, and really good book. Next up, and now we are entering January this year, I read Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, which is a book written by a therapist about kind of not just some really interesting patients of her, but also about herself and her therapist, and kind of the parallels between her life and her patient's life. And it's I really enjoyed the book. And we are now in a time where therapy is very much normalized, which is amazing. And I guess if you don't want to feel so alone in your mental madness, this might be a great book to read. It's just fascinating, hearing about other people's stories, and also stories of success. Obviously there's also sad stories in here. Just kind of a good selection of patients. I feel like I really enjoyed this book. Next book I read was Period Power, which, as the title suggests, is all about the menstrual cycle. And I just wish I would have known about this book sooner. I wish I had read this before I ever got my first period. This has some really, really valuable information about the scientific background of it. It goes from the very basics to a bit more advanced anatomy and just the biology, physiology of the female reproductive system. And it goes through everything from when you first get your period all the way to menopause. It gives you some tips. It talks about what are like normal occurrences during your cycle to abnormal ones, which might indicate an issue that you should seek medical help for. All in all, just a really insightful book. I really enjoyed it. And if you are a female, I believe you should read this. I think every woman should give this book a read. Definitely Definitely recommend this one. All right. Next one, I read this little book. It's called Almond. It is, a coming of age story of this Korean boy who, cannot feel emotions. And it talks about his struggles around that, about his family life, about, growing up in Korea and in, with this kind of disability. And I don't want to say too much. I'm really struggling here with telling you things without spoiling the plot. But as you can see, it's a pretty short book. It has super short chapters, so if you're like a short chapter person, then you will really enjoy this. This is definitely something that you can read in one sitting, one afternoon. I really enjoyed this. It was a great insight into someone else's life and also a bit into the Korean culture. So really good book as well. The next book I read was There, and this has been on my TBR list for way too long, and I cannot believe I waited this long to read this book. This might be one of my all-time favorite books. It was so well written. It takes you through the lives of Native Americans today living in the bigger cities outside of the reservations, and their kind of life, their struggles, and it is written from a lot of people's perspectives, and the author does a really, really good job bringing the character and the voice of each character into the different chapters, so you can really differentiate and feel like you know the person. And honestly, this talks about quite a lot of people. He mentions them all in the beginning here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 characters, which is quite a lot of characters to put into this little book. And I thought I was going to get overwhelmed and lose track of who is who, but the author just does a really good job of reminding you of who you're reading about. And this was definitely a solid 5 out of 5 stars for me until the very end. And I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to spoil it, but I personally did not enjoy the end. I felt like it was rushed, but maybe you will enjoy it. Let me know what you think if you have read this book. And don't be discouraged. I know I said I didn't like the ending, but I still would highly recommend this book. The ending is just one little part of it. I still think there's a lot of value in the other 99% of this story. Next up is another little book, Siddhartha. It's pretty famous, I'd say. It's a pretty old book already. It talks through the story of Buddha, and it's also a book that I've been meaning to read for quite a long time. I really enjoyed it, but it took me a minute to get into it, to be honest. Just getting used to the writing. It is really quite lyrical and like very bloomy, like flowery writing. I have really come to enjoy it throughout this book, but it was kind of hard to get into it. But it talks about self-discovery and the Buddha's journey. And I feel like anyone can take something from this book, and as you can see, it's quite short, so I'm pretty sure you could read this again in a day or so. I must admit, it probably took me closer to a week, just because I had a hard time getting into the language of it. The next book I read was Utopia for Realists, which was so refreshing. And as it already says on the cover here, it talks about these different ideas, utopian ideas, that this author discusses, which include the 15-hour work week, a universal basic income, and open borders. And he kind of backs it up with studies and experiments, and has a lot of good reason behind it. I thought it was really refreshing and also very relevant, I'd say. If you're interested in a bit of alternative thinking to the current politics in the world, then this is a great book. And one thing that I personally really enjoyed about it, it's probably quite silly, but I really loved how this author managed to end chapters on even numbers. So usually he would begin a new chapter or a new topic on page like 50 or 100, 150, that kind of thing. You get my point. And if you're like me, I love to kind of set myself goals of saying like, oh, today I'm going to read 50 pages. So having a chapter end on page 50 was amazing for me, so I quite enjoyed that. No idea if that was intentional or not, but it was definitely a fun part of reading this book. The next two-part story that I have been long overdue with reading is Mouse. If you've been around the channel, then you know that I am German, so this is definitely a really heavy part of my country's history. And yeah, Mouse tells the story of a Holocaust survivor, tells the story of an Auschwitz survivor, and it is all written in form of a comic, which I thought was really genius. I haven't read a comic since I was a child, so this was definitely a different reading experience. I really quite enjoyed it. I love how the author kind of stayed true to the way his father was talking. So yeah, the author is the son of the person that this book is written about. And yeah, if you've read it, you know what I mean. Like, he doesn't correct for English grammar. He just kind of tells it as his Polish father would have said it. And I really quite enjoy the switch between the present time in which he is talking to his dad trying to write this book versus the time that this book is actually about, being World War II. So I really enjoyed this. Given that it's a comic, it's also quite easy to get through, and yeah, I highly recommend this two-part book as well. Next physical book, and by the bookmark you can tell that I am currently still reading this, is called The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. And if you are hanging around BookTube and Book Talk, then you will have seen this book. It is quite popular at the moment. And it is set again in the 1960s. It was honestly a great transition from Mouse, because this too talks about Jewish immigrants in America. It also talks about African Americans in Christian white America and the struggles that come with it, all while also talking about a murder story and about a deaf child who has been taken by the law, by law enforcement, and put into a mental institution. And I'm a little over halfway through. I must say it just keeps getting better and better for me. I cannot wait to read the rest of this book, and I'm sure it'll be great, because so far I have really been enjoying it. The next physical book that I have not read yet, but I am super excited to get to it next. It's called Once I Was You, and it's about a Mexican immigrant to the United States. She's also a journalist, as it says here on the title, a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist actually. And she is talking about the immigration crisis and how it affects everyone in America. It's kind of a wake-up call from what the blurb says, and a really personal memoir by Maria. I feel like this is, again, a really, really current topic. If you have followed American politics, then you will know that there's quite the crisis with immigration going on right now, and so I cannot wait to get around to reading this. I'm sure it'll be a great book. It has great ratings, so maybe you'll take this as inspiration as well. And now I did say, just grab my phone, I did say that I also like to listen to books on Audible. So I pulled up my Audible right here. The first book I listened to this year on Audible was How to Know a Person which talks about interpersonal connection and how to actually get to know people, how to talk to them to get to know their true self. And funnily enough, again written by a Jewish guy. I see a theme here, people. I did not do this on purpose, but it has been very, very good. And me personally, I'm a very introverted, borderline antisocial person, so this really helped me get some good insights into interpersonal connection and conversation. The next book took me a while to get through. It's Outlive by Peter Attia, and this book is all about longevity and the different diseases that are the main causes of death in the modern world and how to prevent them. And again, I am a very big fan of living a healthy life, and I try to do my best to live as healthily, as happily, and as long as I can. So this was quite a good book as well. It was pretty heavy on the science, so I'm glad that I listened to it rather than read the physical copy of it, because I find it quite hard to get through scientific books. And even on Audible, I found that some parts were a bit dragged on a bit, I'd say, just because there was so much science that could have maybe been said a little easier. But all in all, I think this is still a really valuable book, and he made sure that people were able to understand the science behind it as well. So you don't need to be a doctor to know what he's talking about, for sure. All right, then I also listened to The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. And this one was a really fascinating fiction book about a boy who can hear objects. And again, another kind of coming of age story, but this time a really, really long one. Again, a bit of Asian connection, since the boy's father was Japanese. They're now living in Seattle though, and his mom is a hoarder. So you can imagine a boy who hears objects living in a house stuffed to the rim with things. Imagine the struggle behind it. And I like how the book also talks about the materialism of this book and the consumerism that is very present, especially in America, and the environmental impacts and such things. I thought that was really refreshing, and it really integrated well into this book. And those are all topics that I'm very passionate about. So I was actually quite surprised to find those in there, since it didn't really talk about that in the blurb at all. But this book again talks about the struggles and the growing up of this boy. He lost his father, so now he's just living with his mom and kind of the mess that she is after the death of her husband and the death of this this boy's father. And really good book, what can I say? It was pretty long, but very well written, so it was quite enjoyable and easy to get through. And lastly, right now I'm listening to Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, and I'm sure a lot of you will know Outlander since it is quite the successful show, and I just really enjoyed the show. It's like a period drama set post World War II, and it is a fiction story of kind of unintentional time travel back to the 1800s in the Scottish Highlands. And it really talks about what life was like back then, all the conflicts between England and Scotland. And I personally love the UK. I love Scotland so much, so this book brings me back to that time, and I really enjoyed the show. And now that I've started listening to the book, I must say they did a pretty good job so far of adapting the book onto the screen. So that is all the books I have read this year so far. It's crazy, actually, now looking at this pile of books. And these are just the physical ones, so kind of crazy. Like I said, I go through phases. I don't do this all year long, but the winter time is definitely my reading time. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. Let me know what your favorite books are, and yeah, maybe even books that you're planning on reading this year. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave me a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my future content. And yeah, I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.